Welcome to Solutions OP Clinical Trials Podcast. My name is Olga and I'm the Managing Director of Solutions OP. We're a small team of experienced professionals working on clinical trials in the United Kingdom. I'll use our podcast to discuss hot topics in clinical trials and provide analysis of the latest trends and challenges in pharma and medical device industries, not just in the UK but globally. Thank you for listening. Hello to the latest episode of the podcast. In today's episode, I will be talking about study rescue. And for those of you who've been in the industry for a long time, you're probably thinking, oh gosh, yeah, study rescue. But for those of you who are new, I think it could be quite an interesting topic, especially if you're a startup or a smaller company which is looking to launch their first product on the market. So I think it will be a good information for you. But before I start with talking about study rescue and what is this and why it's needed and so on, I'll just say a very few words. When I first started this podcast, my idea is to help improve clinical research and share all the experience that I have over the years. So it was really something that I would like to do and be able to contribute to the clinical research and help people build a better clinical trials and design better clinical trials and have a positive result at the end. And this is one of the topics which has been really critical over the years, and unfortunately, with the time, it's getting more and more critical because we see more studies that need rescue lately than we used to back in the days. But let's start from the very beginning. So what is the study rescue? You'll say what I'm talking about, okay? So the term, this is a term that we use for clinical trials which are not performing as expected. So you can have a variety of reasons for this one. For example, it could be that the contractor who's been working on the study left unexpectedly and you just don't know what to do. You have to find someone urgently to replace the person, or you've selected a CRO which is not quite experienced with the indication or in general with clinical trials, and you end up having a lot of issues and uncertainties and not sure what to do. Or you might have a bad written protocol and bad design protocol which doesn't fit standard of care. So as a result, your sites are not recruiting and you're stuck there and you're not quite sure what the reason is for this thing. So there are many reasons why, as I said, you might need a study rescue. So I just mentioned a few of them. So as I mentioned at the very beginning, we see a lot more tendencies of studies that need rescue. It's a really disturbing trend. Back in the days, yes, sometimes you have a study that needs rescue. But lately, we see a lot more studies that are stuck somewhere. They're not approved by ethics committee, or they're not set up properly, or different issues. It's just an unbelievable amount of issues. So what could be the reason for this increase in studies that need rescue? So I think part of the problem is there are lots of companies who have no experience. And when you have no experience, it's extremely difficult to pick the right contractors to help you. And I think this is a really main thing, especially for startups and small companies. Sometimes they just bumped into the wrong people and then they have loads of problems after that. Another trend to me is that we see a lot of contractors, freelancers who are desperate for work. They're happy to say yes to everything, no matter if they know how to do it or not. So that's another another trend which is contributing. We've seen quite a few studies which were abandoned by the contractor, maybe because the person didn't know what to do. And then they thought they could do it, and then all of a sudden they left. But sometimes the issue is with the hospitals as well, because some hospitals might have lots of studies, but other hospitals don't have so many studies. So there could be a bit of a, for them, that's extra income, particularly in the UK. So they might be a bit desperate to get more studies in. And you might end up having sites and investigators which are not that experienced, that then they don't have the resources necessarily to do your study, but they kind of need a study for their portfolio. So that's another thing that you need to consider. So these are, I think, the main factors in what is causing so many study rescues lately. So what could be the consequences of your study not performing, of your clinical trial not performing as it should be? So the one of the first things that you might see is delay in the setup. Some studies could be significantly delayed, some of them even years. You might have rejections from regulatory agencies for studies which, it just doesn't make sense to be rejected, really. It's a very simple, straightforward study, and all of a sudden it's rejected. Why? Because someone didn't complete the application form correctly, or didn't provide the information that the ethics committee or MHRA expected to see, or any other agency, involved. You can see also slow recruitment. This could be purely because of any logistical issues that the hospitals that you've selected are experiencing, or it could be a direct result of your study not fit for purpose for the standard of care. So the hospitals are struggling really to manage it. The result of all this is that you can have a really poor data quality. That's another thing that we've seen also, unfortunately. A lot of poor data quality, particularly with real evidence studies. I know people think, wow, that's the new big thing, and regulatory agencies are so happy to see real world evidence studies, so let's do more of these. But it's very tricky. I think these type of studies are very tricky, and if you have a bad study design, you might end up having a really poor data quality, and the regulators will not be happy when you present that data to them. That's the short message. And another complication is that your clinical trial could basically fail because of this, or all these issues that you're having: poor data quality, or very slow recruitment, or delayed in setup, and so on. So all these problems could actually result in failure. And if you think about, well, why would a delay could cause a failure of the clinical trial? Well, as you can imagine, in all disease areas, there's lots of competition. By the time you're spending trying to figure out how to set up your study, your competitors are already setting up their studies, and they're having the data and submitting for marketing authorization, for example. So yes, you need to consider that it's a competitive environment, and you need to try and get the data as quickly as possible, and in as much as good quality as you can. As you can imagine, failed clinical trials are really a big loss of money. Having a bad design study and not doing it right. It's simple as opening the window and throwing a few millions out of the window. It's exact same. At the end, you have nothing. You don't have the data. You're upset. You're frustrated. You've lost your money. So we don't want this to happen. And of course, if we are looking into the big picture, failed studies and medical device studies and drug studies, it means that there are less products available for the patients on the market. And this is a serious impact at the moment, when we have more challenges with companies accessing funding. I think it's very important to do things right the first time. So, how can we prevent this need of study rescue? So what can we do so that our clinical trial is less likely to fail, and we don't need anyone to intervene and have to rescue our study? So the first thing is to hire the correct team. And make sure you speak to the right people. So what happens, particularly with CROs, when you're interviewing people initially and you're making a decision which CRO to use, sometimes, you come across some very knowledgeable manager who knows so many things, and you're like, wow, these guys will be amazing. And then when they assign the people to work on your project, it turns out that these people have no experience, or they have very little experience. So I think, particularly for those who are smaller companies and startups, it's really important that you speak to the people who will be involved in your project. Not just whoever is the higher manager there, someone who's very experienced, obviously, and they know their things. But it is important that you speak to those who will be working on your study, and you have this reassurance that these people know what they're doing. They're able to answer your specific questions. So that's the main thing that you need to do. And even if you're not that experienced in selecting people and stuff, I think if you have an interview with different people and you speak to these who are doing the work, you will start getting the feeling, who is more confident and who is more able to answer your questions in comparison to other people who speak more general stuff, so they might not necessarily have so much hands-on experience. So that's the main thing. The other thing is speak to your colleagues, build a network, speak to others, see what they can recommend you. Have they worked with someone who they know is good? I think this is also very important, especially when you're relatively new in the industry and you don't know that many people that you can reach out. The other very important thing that I keep saying every now and then is the design of the protocol. You need to have a really good design of the protocol. Involve as many people as you can. You need to have the biostatistician. You need to have the physicians in the countries where you want to run the clinical trial. You need to have people from clinical operations. If it's a drug, you need to speak to the pharmacy and see how it's going to work. You really need to think about logistics and different aspects of the study and how that will work in practice. Not just how you want it to work, but how it will actually work in practice. And I think this is the main issue that many companies have. They have created something which sounds great on paper. It meets all their needs in terms of data, but they haven't really thought how that's going to work in the hospital in real life settings. So this is why it is important to have a multidisciplinary team, and you have different people involved, people with experience and who are working with these patients and patients themselves as well, to help you really build a good design. And here I'm going to give an example with one drug which I worked a few years ago, which was for brain cancer. And the drug was in liquid form. It was quite a lot of liquid that the patients had to drink. And I remember on the site initiation visit, I was there presenting this one, and the nurses were looking very skeptical at me. And then we had that discussion after the meeting. I said, guys, I saw that you're not feeling very comfortable. And they said, but Olga, these patients, many of them have nausea. How are they going to drink so much? It's really difficult. How they're going to manage this? So, whoever designed the study, everything was brilliant. But things like that, purely logistical things that you could have predicted in advance, these things have not been explored, and these issues have not been addressed, and things like that could really ruin your study at the end of the day. So it's very important to have these discussions with everyone, even though you might think, well, why should I ask the nurse? But you really should ask the nurse, because the nurse is also involved. They see the patients, they know a lot of practical things that they can help you and get involved into your project and help you with the design, really, by giving you very good advice. Another thing is, do your risk assessment. It doesn't matter if it's a drug or device study, you really need to do a risk assessment from a very early stage. What could possibly go wrong? Not just, it's not paranoia, really, but it's really to help you try and predict any bottlenecks in your study, and what could, possibly be causing you challenges, so that you can try and think of solutions for that kind of issues before you have even started. So I think it's really important that you do throughout your study risk assessments and risk analysis, so that you have a really good quality data. Even in terms of good quality data, you need to monitor your data regularly, and not just wait for the end of the study and do the snapshot, and then you look at it and you're thinking, oh gosh, what happened here? You need to think about all these things in advance and create some time points where you're going to have a look into the data and have some analysis and discussion with your team. But you'll be surprised how many people don't do anything until the final data log, when they look into the data, and then they start scratching their heads and thinking, oh gosh, what went wrong here? So what I'm going to say is, another thing is, you have to really select the right sites for your study. And I cannot emphasize enough on this thing. It's very important to know where your patients are. Are they going to your family doctor, to the GP, or are they going to a hospital, or are they going to a private clinic, or are they going somewhere else? So you really need to know where your patients are, and then based on that, select the sites. Generally, if you go for hospitals, you could expect people who are with a more advanced disease, with a more clinical symptoms and so on. So you really need to think, when you're designing the study and selecting the sites, where your sites are, which countries are good for this indication, because you might go to a country where there are very, very few cases, so why open that country in the first place? So you really need to think about all that logistics and speak to people locally in the countries that you want to set up the study, and make sure you select the right people for the study. So what I can say in conclusion is this. Disclaimer, okay. We do help, and we help many clients. We've helped many clients with study rescue. However, I don't like the study rescue, I have to admit, and I would prefer that companies do things right the first time. And I really encourage everyone, please do your best. Don't allow your study to fail and come to someone for rescue. So I hope this was a useful podcast if you're working on clinical trials. Thank you so much for listening.